Hey, Lee Vantage. Have we been wrong the whole time about the mark of the beast? Let's see what these guys are talking about. I like the title. Let's see what the conversation looked like. 250 subscribers. Let's get to that goal. Subscribe now. Like the video now. Let's check this out. Dr. Dan Wallace, renowned New Testament scholar, Greek expert. Okay, we about to see. We about to see what we got going on. Let me shrink myself. Okay, I got the Superman stuff still going on. By the way, I just went on a whole hour review on Superman. Um, I gave a first overall review and then I did a spoiler. It's like an hour almost. All right, check it out when you can. Let's just jump into this.
My best estimate, in light of how many variants we have, is that it's less than 0.1% of all textual variants that are meaningful and viable. That's a pretty significant difference. So when you talk about all these hundreds of thousands of variants, that's just throwing something, out there as if that all of them are significant, they're meaningful, they change the text, and they're early. No, that's not even remotely close to the truth.
Can you give an example of one that would fit into that both meaningful and viable category that is just so people can get a sense of the type of information that's impacted by that small percentile?
Sure. So let me give you an example from Revelation chapter 13, verse 18. It's where we read about the number of the beast. The number of the beast is 666, and it's a man's number, or man's number is how I would prefer to translate it. I think it's mankind's in the sense that, do you know what gematria is? Have you heard that term before?
So let's keep pace. He said he changed it up. He said how he would say it. So now we have to realize what he is saying versus what it actually is. So we got to be always mindful of words, how people are using words. This man asked him his opinion too. So what we're doing now, we're jumping into his interpretation or what he feels based on how he perceives it, if that makes sense. So this isn't law. This ain't gonna be what he's about to say isn't gonna be changing anything because he didn't say, "Hey, it was a mistake made here. The interpretation or the translation is this. We thought it was this, but it's this." See, that's the difference. All right.
I haven't.
Gematria is an ancient way to figure out the numerical value of names. And the numerical value of 666, you could plug in a number of different names where A equals 1. It goes through the alphabet like that. But before Arabic numerals were around, the Greeks used letters for numbers. And they didn't have 666. It would be 600, one letter, 60, the next letter, and then 6, the last letter. These are three different letters. There are two very important, very early manuscripts that have the number of the beast as 616. One is a recent find just in the last 25 years, 27 years, that has the number of the beast as 616, and it's at Oxford University. It's a papyrus from the 3rd century. It's the oldest manuscript we have for Revelation chapter 13. The number of the beast is 616. Then there's a manuscript called Ephraemi Rescriptus, which is at the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris, the National Library of France in Paris. I've had the opportunity to examine both of these manuscripts in the flesh. They're the only manuscripts we have that have the number of the beast as 616. But Ephraemi Rescriptus is from about AD 400, right around the beginning of the 5th century, and it's one of our two most important manuscripts for Revelation, and yet it has the number of the beast as 616. This other papyrus, which is very important, is the oldest manuscript we have for Revelation 13. Now, we know about these variants from Irenaeus, a 2nd century church father, who actually wrote a chapter on the number of the beast. And he said, the number of the beast is 666. There are some manuscripts that have the number of the beast as 616, but that's defective. 666 is his number, and we know this. He gave some reasons that were not what we'd consider the best kind of arguments. But he said, and those are found in the older manuscripts. Well, he's writing about AD 170.
And you gotta give us what his reasonings were. See, you gotta be honest in your scholarship. Yeah, okay, he's actually throwing away your ideology and how you came up with it, but tell us why he's throwing it away. You know, you're not debating, you're not arguing. Give us the information. He's not giving us the information. He's just trying to paint from his narrative, because his narrative seems, me personally, he has my ear with it. 616 or 666. They both have my ear. Am I going to be wrong for believing in one over the other? No, because we are all marked with that. In some way and somehow. You have your own vices. You follow the wrong things. You do the wrong things instead of doing the right things. It's kind of there. Now, can you identify it? Is basically what that means.
The older manuscripts, John's gospel, not his gospel, but the book of Revelation was written about 95. So he's talking about manuscripts that are 75 years old. Those are the older manuscripts. Well, maybe they weren't necessarily older because these manuscripts weren't dated. It's just that they were copied more frequently. They were used more, and consequently, he would think they were older. 616 actually fits the gematria for Nero Caesar, Nero Caesar. And there was this myth that was going on in the 1st century that died out in the 2nd. It was called the Nero Redivivus myth, that Nero would rise from the dead. He was just an atrocious monster to Christians, as you know, lighting up the Appian Way with Christians hanging on crosses and then torching them so that people would have light to walk during the night to get to his parties. I mean, what a monstrous man. So there was this fear that Nero would rise again. So 616 may well be the original number of the beast. 666 might be the number. I don't know. Some days I wake up and I said, I think 666, that's the number of the beast. Other days I wake up, no, I think it's 616. But this I do know. Most scholars would say, no, 616, that's not the number of the beast, but it is the neighbor of the beast. He just lives a few doors down. Here's the importance of this. Even though if I had 616 in a published New Testament, it would send 7 tons of popular Christian literature to the flames. I don't know of a single Bible college, seminary, denomination, or even a church. Now, I'm sure there are some wacky churches that have in their doctrinal statement the following. We believe in the virgin birth. We believe in the deity of Christ. Of course, they're going to have that. We believe in the Trinity. We believe in angels and demons. And we believe that the number of the beast is 666.
Right.
It may be important, but it's not that important. And that's one of the more significant, viable, and meaningful variants we have among our New Testament manuscripts.
That's super interesting. I remember, I think it was in that same Veritas Forum lecture that you gave, you talked about another one of the ones that falls into that 0.1% of meaningful and viable category, which was to some demons only come out with prayer and fasting, or some demons only come out with prayer, and that fasting, the word fasting is in question. Is that right?
Yeah, great memory. Mark 9:29 after the disciples tried to cast out a demon, they were a particularly pesky demon. They were unsuccessful. They come to Jesus, and he says some of these can only be cast out by prayer, or he says some of these can only be cast out by prayer and fasting. The and fasting is disputable, and it's a very difficult question whether it's original or not. It's the only place in the New Testament that would suggest that fasting is the norm for Christians today in any capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have is, it's not a matter of orthodoxy. Again, this is not the kind of thing that rises to the level of a creedal position. It is a matter of orthopraxy. If you're in the business of casting out demons, it's probably good to hedge your bet and pray and fast. And I've actually been involved in 2 house exorcisms, and I'm not sure what the original says, so I prayed and I fasted ahead of time.
Yeah.
So it affected that. But they're fascinating variants. They're really interesting.
Yeah.
And it's fun to find these things. But what do they affect? They affect the interpretation of the passage at that point, but they don't affect the larger theological issues. That's the amazing thing about it.
If you enjoyed this conversation, you might also enjoy the Wisdom Society. Join today.
Yeah, that was interesting. That was interesting. I like he didn't stamp down. I thought he was gonna stamp down, but he didn't. He kind of said, and what I mean by that, he didn't speak in totalities. I thought he was going there earlier, like he was gonna start speaking in totalities based on his perspective, but he just threw out the ideology, which was cool, of it, which still kept him balanced in his thought, because he was like, hey, it's women, I'm thinking this, woman think, because new evidence needs to be made and brought up. It's more concrete. And I think when you're looking into the past and we're looking at these scripts, we have to always remember we're getting this from a language that most of us don't speak. So, and the people who got it had to have had translated some of the language from a language that they probably didn't speak, or those that spoke it. Now it's now you have it to where that language is being translated, either from someone who speaks it or their own personal translations of it. Thus the word hell and a lot of other words in the Bible that belong to different languages, and they give the closest association to what it could be referring to. So, of course, hell is Hela. I think it's Norse. It's a Norse goddess of the dead. So, be mindful of what you're saying. Hell belong where hell belongs and what hell actually is, because it doesn't have a home in Judaism or Torah or anything. It's a translation of. It's not even a translation. They put the name for their deity in the Bible to describe that place. Now, chop down those can of worms. You know what I mean? Like that's wild. Even though it's the closest thing, like I said before, to what they felt it meant or what they were describing. Call it the name that it is what I'm basically saying. If no one got that, that's all I'm saying. Call it the name it says it is in there. You don't got to translate it to something else that means something completely for some other belief. This is how you get the confusion. People running around talking about you going to hell and you don't even realize they could have just left it the way it was. You didn't have to translate it. Call it what is being called in there, so you don't mess it up or lose the meaning of it. Now everyone has an idea of hell, and it's based on what? I'm even saying hell. Like and subscribe. See you on the other side. We out.